Nobody said a thing when she entered. Christine Brown didn't need to. The click of her heels on the shiny Flagstaff courthouse floor said it all. Her binder, never so fat, wedged tight beneath her arm like a final warning before a war nobody was prepared for. Courtroom 7 had been home away from home for 2 weeks, but today was special. This time, it was the air that refused to yield. As if the walls knew this was not just another round of accusations or evidence. This was the end. The end of silence, the end of deception, and maybe, if the judge could see what Christine was on the verge of telling him, the end of Kody Brown's carefully guarded heritage. Robyn was already inside, white-knuckled and pale, her hand twisting a tissue she hadn't even removed from her pocket yet. Kody hadn't arrived. Not yet. Not like him to be late, but then again, it wasn't like him to lose either. The clock in the courtroom was ringing louder than ever before, louder than the voices in Christine's head, louder than the uncertainty she had suppressed with every color-coded tab in that binder. There were 24 tabs, 20, 3 already exposed, argued, torn apart in front of a courtroom full of attorneys, cameras, and ex-wives who once claimed family. But the 24th, that bill never had a chance to see the light of day. It wasn't financial like all the others, it wasn't legal, it was personal, and it held the reason she stayed quiet for years, and now couldn't anymore. Whatever was in that final tab wasn't just proof. It was the secret Kody wanted to keep forever hidden. The judge appeared, and Christine stood. "Mrs. Brown," he nodded, tired but steadfast, the kind of man who has heard so many lies that he always can tell the truth from the weight. "Are you ready to show the last document?" Christine didn't flinch. "Yes, Your Honor," she replied, and placed the binder on the evidence table like a coffin. The room didn't gasp, but it sealed. Robyn looked down. The courtroom door opened. Kody walked in. Late, confident, but slower. There was a glint to his step that felt like dread covered in pride. Christine turned, eyes locking onto his. No anger, no hatred. Only quiet. The kind that screams louder than rage. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Tab 24, he announced. "Let's proceed." And Christine opened it slowly, intentionally. Because in wasn't a receipt or a photocopy, it was something written, dated, signed, witnessed, sealed, a letter. And signed at the bottom of it a name that brought Robyn up short. Because it wasn't Christine's and it wasn't Kody's either. The beat in the courtroom shifted the moment Christine withdrew the letter from beneath the plastic sleeve. It was folded once, twice, sharp at the corners, the ink slightly smudged. A memory of something someone thought they'd left in the past. Christine didn't speak. She let the quiet envelop the action of opening it up. Her hands remained still than when she first read it alone in her kitchen one night. She found it taped underneath the drawer where Kody kept files on finances. She hadn't been looking for it, but it found her anyway. The judge's eye went up, and he leaned forward a notch. "Would you like to read it to me?" he asked. Christine shook her head and handed it over to the bailiff. "I think the handwriting of the writer speaks for itself better than I could." The bailiff handed the letter to the judge, who pushed his glasses up once more before his eyes narrowed. For a thick, long second he didn't stir. And then he read the name at the bottom. David Jacobson. Robyn gasped, this time out loud. Her hand flew to her mouth as if she couldn't believe it had slipped away by mistake. Kody stiffened. His knuckles whitened on the defense table. The courtroom didn't blink because David Jacobson was not a name. He was a man Kody claimed didn't exist. A ghost accountant who was rendered ghost after a family meeting in 2017. A name deleted from records. A consultant allegedly fired discreetly. And yet, here he was, his words recorded, his signature authentic. The judge flipped the letter over. "It is notarized," he muttered, "sealed and authenticated." Christine nodded. "Logan gave it to me." He found it in a deserted Dropbox folder Kody hadn't revoked access from. Kody shifted uncomfortably. "That was my private folder," he muttered between his teeth, the judge heard. "And this letter details exactly." Christine cleared her throat. Robyn and Kody began putting shared marital funds into a private estate account. In 2016, it also lists the code names that were utilized to conceal the transfers. She opened the binder again. There are 2 pages of them, all with account activity. The judge flipped a few more pages and his mouth grew into a hard, thin line. "These are not mere misallocations," he said. Those are disguises, he looked up. Mr. Brown, did you know about these aliases? Kody didn't answer. Robyn did, though, and what she said made the room forget how to breathe. I didn't know he was still using them, she whispered. The judge blinked. Christine didn't. So you did know, at some point, he asked. Robyn hesitated, and that is when Christine pulled out of the binder the corroborating statement. Her autograph's there, Christine said, shoving on the box. I aged it. It is the same date as the letter. The courtroom froze, because in an ocean of blame and denial, this wasn't guesswork. It was a handwritten admission. And the woman who'd been helping with household finances by Kody had just been tied to the biggest secret hoard of the entire trial. The judge placed the letter down like it burned. He then pressed a button beneath the bench. A soft buzzer sounded around the courtroom, and in that moment Christine realized he wasn't asking for a recess. He was asking for backup. The correct buzzer rang off the walls as if the warning bell from an old war movie. It didn't ring loudly, but the context behind it was deafening. Each of them understood what that meant. Even Robyn, rigid as a statue, slowly blinking like a deer who'd just spotted the hunter standing 3 feet behind her. Christine didn't look at her. She didn't need to anymore. The situation between them had reversed the moment that yellow tab had been pulled. The judge leaned back slightly, hands clasped together, elbows on the arms of his chair like a man preparing to deliver a funeral oration rather than a judicial ruling. The tension was broken, though, when the side door swung open and 2 federal marshals walked in, quiet, sharp uniforms, fists cocked. Kody's face twitched, once beneath the left eye, as if something within him short-circuited at the glance. The judge didn't even face them. He addressed the court clerk. I order all these documents in tabs 19 to 24 sealed and stored for immediate review by the District Financial Crimes Division. Christine observed Kody swallow hard. She could sense the movement of his Adam's apple bobbing behind his pinched jaw. That is over 700 pages, his attorney grumbled to himself actually. Not anymore, replied Christine, opening the final document in the tab. I removed the duplicates and added 1 extra ledger. She slid a second envelope down the table. This one shows the payment Robyn got the week Kody told us the family couldn't afford to continue with the children's therapy. A few heads turned in the room. Even Janelle, otherwise quiet, leaned forward in her chair. What year? The judge asked, though his tone had changed. It wasn't clinical anymore, it was something else. Something colder. Christine didn't pause. 2017, the same month Mary was told her credit score was too low for approval to refinance her house. But as you'll see, $42,300 was funneled to a Flagstaff developer through an account called Riverlight Property Trust. She pointed again. The trust was registered in Robyn's name. The writing is similar to the writing on the TLC payment slips. It wasn't secret cash, it was cash withheld from the other wives. While Robyn constructed her fortune, the judge pointed at the paper. The bailiff handed it to him. As the judge flipped through the pages, Robyn cracked, not loudly, not theatrically, but softly. Her body shook once, twice, and then she whispered something so softly. Christine only half heard it. He told me it was for us. The judge looked up. Excuse me. Robyn did not speak. Kody, for once, tried to jump in. Your Honor, this isn't what it seems to be. But the judge raised a finger, warning him. Mr. Brown, he said flatly, I've given you 10 sessions to provide background. I've received nothing but contradictions, appeals to emotion, and unsubstantiated denials. Now I've got something different. A notarized letter of witness, a completed ledger, corresponding signatures, and code named trust conduits intended to hide income from legal spouses. Do you not recognize the existence of Riverlight Property Trust? Kody opened his mouth, closed it. Then slowly turned to Robyn, but she was already looking at him, eyes glassy, lips trembling, and for the first time in their whole televised, viewed, produced, for a television marriage, Christine saw a glimmer of what looked like fear flicker across Robyn's face. Not sorrow, not remorse, not shame. Fear, for Riverlight was not just a moniker, it was a choice, a lie, and Christine had just made sure the court had seen it. The judge glanced once more to the marshals. Remain vigilant, he ordered. There is reason to act today. Christine's breath hitched. Not fear relief. It was happening at last. Robyn said not another word, but her silence was screaming it. Her fingers stopped shaking the moment the judge uttered the word arrest. Not that she was cool, but that she knew. This wasn't just a trial anymore. This was a line in the sand, and Christine had only just sketched it out in fluorescent highlighter and a final binder tab. Kody sat locked, jaws clenched, shoulders set like a man literally straining physically to maintain his reality. But even his silence had changed. It wasn't powered any longer. It was implosion in slow motion. The judge inhaled, went over the ledger again, and turned to the clerk. Insert Exhibit 24 into the record as evidence of willful misrepresentation of marital assets. The clerk nodded. Kody rose finally. Your Honor, this is a gross overextension. Sit down, Mr. Brown. The judge didn't yell. He didn't have to. The court has not been merely deceived. It has been misled calculatingly, strategically. With multiple layers of financial insulation in place in phony LLCs and sealed trust records, Christine leaned into the microphone slowly. There is one extra page in the tab. The room held its breath. She pulled it from the sleeve like a slow-motion knife and offered it out to the bailiff. This document was never formally filed, she said, but it was signed and written. The following day, Kody asked us all to reaffirm our commitment to the family brand for 2020. The judge read it, stopped mid-sentence. His eyes flew back to Christine. Is this what I think it is? She nodded. A postnup, with Robyn as the sole residual beneficiary of the estate, signed by Kody, notarized and uploaded to our joint Dropbox. She paused. Until I got locked out. The judge put the paper down as if it weighed more than law. This gives legal justification for funneling assets, he said in a low tone. Even prior to the other wives being shut off the trust. He tapped the table with his pen, once, twice, then looked at the marshals. Step forward, please. Kody stood out of habit. Wait, what is going on? He snapped, voice truncated and rising. Not criminal. This is a family battle. The judge tuned him out. Not any longer, he answered. This had become a case of potential economic coercion, fraudulent concealment, and breach of fiduciary duty in a mutual domestic trust. Kody's face turned chalky. White, Robyn's fingers locked around the table. The marshals didn't move yet, but they changed the climate. Thick, electrical. Christine wasn't panting for breath. She was still, not triumphant, not smug, just released. The judge turned to the court recorder. Mark this date. The court is officially requesting a state-level investigation of Brown Legacy Ventures, Riverlight Property Trust, and all related LLCs of Kody Brown or Robyn Brown. The room didn't gasp. It exhaled, as if the truth had finally sucked all the oxygen out of every corner. And then Mary stood. She hadn't spoken a word since session 4, hadn't so much as moved except to shift in her seat or push her glasses up. But now she was standing, and Christine turned slowly to confront her, not knowing if this was support or more betrayal. Mary's tone was low, flat, but firm. I remember the meeting, she said, eyes straight ahead. I was standing when he spoke those words. The family would have to appear unified for legal simplicity. I remember because I asked him if we would all be okay. He told me, and here are the words verbatim. Robyn has the cleanest paperwork. That is what counts. She looked at the judge. That was the night that I knew that we were no longer wives. We were props. Kody's jaw fell, but nothing came out. Janelle whispered, My God, from the back row, and Christine, still standing, whispered quietly to no one in particular, That's why this binder exists. The judge motioned for silence. We're not done, he said, but we're very close. The atmosphere in Courtroom 7 could no longer be described as tense. It had cracked entirely. The judge's voice vibrated with a finality that pulsed in Christine's heart. Not with fear, but with an odd, oppressive calm. For years she had sat across from Kody Brown and said nothing. At the table, on set, in shared homes where love was doled out like an exclusive commodity. But now she stood across from him with evidence, with voice, and with truth. No more scripts, no more editing, no more appearances. This was not a reunion special. This was for real, and the fallout was no longer avoidable. Kody's lawyer rose to the bench. Your Honor, we'd like a recess to speak with our client. Denied, the judge snapped. This court has had quite enough gamesmanship. We have a full notarized financial history, paired exchanges, a postnup signed, and a letter from a standalone fiduciary consultant, notarized. If those were discovered in a corporate probe, the SEC would already be here. Kody looked over at Robyn, who was now gaping as if in another universe. Not crying, just vacant. The kind of look people have when they view the future they built was erected out of borrowed blocks. Christine did not look her way. She glared at the judge. "There is one other document, Your Honor, not in the binder. I left it alone for safety reasons." She pulled out a plain white envelope from her purse. No tabs, no colors of any kind. Christine, otherwise composed, at last turned to him. "They already do," she answered. "They just didn't know it yet." The judge waved for the court clerk to stamp the time. "We are entering on deliberation on pre-trial criminal referral and motion to unseal Christine Brown's entire contents of the binder for state investigation." Murmurs ran through the room like aftershocks. Janelle rummaged in her bag, pulled out a smaller binder of hers, and handed it quietly to the bailiff. "My ain't near as pretty," she said softly, "but it corroborates her." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You are showing corroborating evidence. I am Janelle." Christine wasn't alone who made notes. She was just the only one with guts enough to employ them. Kody sat down hard, rubbing his face as though he might rub out the moment. But the moment was already recorded, dated, entered into legal record. The marshal stood frozen. Statues waiting for a trigger phrase. Christine closed the binder. Tab 24 had done its job. Then the judge leaned forward and spoke 7 words that made everything else irrelevant. "Prepare the arrest warrant for Kody Brown." It happened so fast, and yet so silently, that for one moment no one stirred. Those words, "prepare the arrest warrant for Kody Brown," sounded like a news report rather than reality. Kody's face didn't change right away. It was as if his brain had rejected the information, as if it simply couldn't take in the reality that he, the patriarch, the television personality, the guy who always had the power to reverse public opinion, was being grouped with the very same people he would mock on talk shows. But Christine didn't blink. Neither did Janelle. The judge rapped the bench twice. "Bailiff, confiscate all digital backups." "Do you have any external storage, Mrs. Brown?" Christine nodded and shoved ahead a flash drive with the following handwritten label. "Binder tab 24. Backup fake CRC." Kody leaped up, his chair falling behind him. "This is absurd," he snapped. "You are humiliating me for a reality show script." The judge was unruffled. "Mr. Brown, you wrote that story on the day you began moving family trust funds into illegal accounts based on non-consensual contracts. We're not talking about shame. We're talking about felonies." Robyn's voice cut through the courtroom like a desperate whisper. "I didn't know it would go so far." Christine slowly turned to her. "You knew enough to sign the amendment. You knew well enough to take the money." Robyn looked down, her hands now clenched fists on the table. But it was not Christine's words that shattered the moment. It was what the judge continued to say that shattered Kody Brown's final fantasy of control. "This court does not operate by TLC contracts. This courtroom honors the law." He glanced at the bailiff. "Call an officer from Flagstaff PD in for arrest processing. Expedited order." The whispers became a hum out of sight in the gallery. Kody's attorney interrupted. Frantic now. "Your Honor, we respectfully request house arrest and electronic monitoring. He is a public figure, and this program is already causing reputational harm." "So noted," the judge replied with a stern tone. "But you are discussing potential damage. The harm already done to his former wives, financial dependence, and mutual trust obligations is very real and established." Kody's voice broke, literally broke. "You think Christine was perfect. She was calculating. She turned them all against me." Christine stood up again, calm, resolute. "No, Kody, you did that yourself. I just kept the receipts." The bailiff handed a sheet of paper to the judge. He read it and then signed it with the kind of finality that only comes when all of the excuses have been used up. All of the cover stories laid bare. The arrest warrant is issued and in force. Defendant Kody Brown is to be taken into custody and brought in for financial concealment and misappropriation of common marital trust property. The marshals drew near, Robyn remained steadfast. She just stood there and let her husband, the man who for years vowed he'd done it all in order to protect the family, be restrained. Not hard, but firmly, as if this was something they'd done 1,000 times already, because it was. Christine didn't flinch. Neither did Janelle. And then Mary got up again, and for the first time in 12 years, she said something nobody expected. He protected himself. Not the family. Judge Kirk turned to Robyn. You are not arrested yet, but you should seek independent legal advice at once. Robyn's face collapsed in on itself. Her mouth fell open, but she did not speak, because what could she possibly say, now that the disguise had finally been removed? As the ring of metal restraints echoed through the courtroom, a shiver of silence settled over the gathered crowd. Kody Brown, the formerly dominant patriarch who had paced across driveways and confessionals like a man born to command attention, now fell prey to the clang of steel slamming. Just one handwritten title on the front. Robyn's Amendment, 2021. The clerk handed it to the judge, who opened it slowly and handed it back to the clerk. He read through it once quietly, then twice, and then he removed his glasses. This is an amending affidavit to the postnup, signed and notaried in March of 2021, removing the other wives from secondary asset eligibility? Christine nodded. Yes, the other wives were never even notified. Robyn blinked rapidly. Not what I said, she said softly. The judge raised an eyebrow. So, what did you mean when you signed an amendment that was meant to exclude any chance of joint estate inheritance to the rest of the legal wives? Robyn's mouth went open, but nothing came out. Kody came in with desperation. We were advised to make the estate plain for media protection. DLC asked us to be straightforward for branding. And how is that excluding the women who built your brand safe? Because the brand never was about us. The judge cut in, toning a sword as sharp as ice. Kody bristled. Christine did not blink. It was about Robyn, she declared. It always was. The judge leaned back, fingers interlaced. The judge holds that there is sufficient evidence to establish intent to conceal, transfer, and sequester funds in violation of oral marriage agreements, shared trust ownership, and state law, if such law is applicable. He looked at the marshals. Remain here. Then he went back into the courtroom. This is now a criminal matter, pending review. Kody's knees did wobble a little, and he clung to the lip of the table for support. Robyn's lip trembled. Christine stood there, binder still open, that last tab still visible in full view, like a tombstone inscribed in yellow highlights. At the back of the room, Janelle finally spoke. Her voice wasn't trembling. We requested receipts. Undefined, he provided scripture. A few of the gallery visitors gasped, not at the words, but at the bare truth in them. Undefined, we asked how the money was spent. Undefined Hay assured us God would provide. Undefined Way asked about the kids' college funds. He instructed her not to bother with it. Undefined But he always ensured Robyn's house was paid first. Janelle stood up slowly. Undefined Christine kept every word. Undefined End. Now we all know why. The judge leaned forward again. Undefined Mrs. Undefined Brown. He instructed Christine, down case you officially requesting criminal referral. Undefined, she hesitated all down then. Nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Down case am, and the room. Undefined went still. The words, I am, hung in the courtroom like the rhythm of an executioner's drum. No one moved, not even the bailiff, not even Robyn, whose quivering hands had finally ceased. Not from loss, but from shock. The same woman who had employed tears as shields in the past now sat speechless as Christine's binder transformed from a book of receipts. It became a weapon, a treasury of betrayal, a scream that finally found paper form, and now the judge had to decide what to do with it. He leaned into the microphone, his voice low and clear. Let the record show that Christine Brown, as both joint financial partner and legal wife of all relevant transactions at the time, is making a formal state-level criminal referral for financial concealment, marital fraud, and fiduciary abuse. Kody's face was a big open mirror pushed to the breaking point. His jaw locked. His breathing was shallow. His sang-froid, so legendary, so contrived, fell apart. This is insane, he snarled, his voice abruptly loud. You can't make decades of business into a circus of emotions because she is bitter. The judge turned icy. Mr. Brown, if you keep talking out of turn, I will have you held in contempt. Christine didn't flinch. It is not bitterness, she said. It is arithmetic. It is signatures. It is timestamps. She indicated toward the binder. He would tell us the books are clean. So I cleaned them. I organized them. I backed them up. Then he took my access away. Robyn changed position, at last whispering, she was never supposed to find the Dropbox. That one sentence sent a ripple through the gallery. The judge halted in his steps. Repeat it. Robyn gazed upwards, his eyes huge, his tears welling up. He said he swept everything clean, but she still had the old passwords. Kody glared at her like a man watching his alibi shatter before his very eyes. You swore you never laid eyes on the Dropbox. Robyn didn't respond. The courtroom was not seeing a marriage dissolve. It was seeing a cover-up unravel one email. One tab on a binder at a time. The judge spoke to the bailiff. Get the envelope marked Robyn's amendment and Exhibit 24 into evidence storage, now. Then to the marshals. Stand by to take the parties into custody if necessary. Kody crashed forward. I have kids, he yelled, his urgency seeping into his voice like the crack in stained glass. I have a fan base. You think anyone will tune in to a show about a crook? Over his wrists, Christine did not smile. She did not laugh. This wasn't revenge, it was responsibility. For all those years he had demanded their loyalty as he sprinkled lies. Now the system needed his integrity. The marshals took Kody to the edge of the room, not the front door. No, this was not television. This was not Sister Wives. This was life. And the camera crew was not invited. Robyn, sitting rigidly in her chair, scowled at the floor. Her jaw clamped hard enough that the muscle quivered along her cheek. She had not asked for mercy. She had not complained. She hadn't moved to block them. That silence screamed louder than anything she ever said in those gleaming couch interviews. Christine watched her warily, not with cruelty, but calculation, because she knew what was coming, and so did Robyn. It nodded forward over the microphone, his voice low and measured. Mrs. Brown, Robyn Brown, you are not at this time under arrest. But your name is on a number of signed papers, sealed trust filings, and amended postnups. You are going to be subpoenaed to testify. You'll have to furnish all communications relating, bank statements, and personal transaction records. Robyn slowly blinked, the blood draining from her face. And if you don't comply, the judge continued, you might be found complicit in the concealment of funds owned by a number of plaintiffs who share a common estate. Christine had nothing else to say, because now the judge was reading from her binder as if it contained Holy Scripture, and Robyn's name showed up in nearly every chapter. I, Robyn, started, voice breaking. I signed what Kody told me to sign. He had handled the accounts. The judge nodded, almost sympathetically. And did you have questions first to sign? Robyn hesitated too long. Sometimes, she breathed. And did you know that these signatures? He held up a printed amendment, removed Christine, Janelle, and Mary from estate assets, and gave 94% future investment in property to an account in your sole name. Robyn's eyes welled up. I didn't think it would take everything from them. Mary pushed back up from her chair, arms folded. You didn't think, or you didn't care? The air in the room snapped taut. For years, Mary had been the quiet one, the patient one, the one who played loyal in public. But there was something in her tone that felt hard, embittered by years of emotional hunger and legal manipulation. Christine sat. Her role was over. Tab 24 had been heard. The judge leaned back. This court will now recess before hearing arguments on full trust dissolution. Mr. Brown will be processed. Mrs. Brown, he spoke to Robyn, Faye will be formally instructed about subpoena service. The remaining plaintiffs may remain or depart. He hesitated. But this case is no longer about debate. It is a reckoning. He banged the gavel. The court adjourned. The room did not explode. It breathed. And in that still moment, the patriarchal edifice Kody built, the brand, the myth, the stage, managed patriarchy, collapsed in silence. Robyn stood up, but she did not go to Christine. She did not apologize. She didn't even look at her. She just mouthed one sentence under her breath. Barely audible, they said the binder would not count. But it did, it always did. The courtroom emptied slowly as if every person was afraid to leave first, afraid to blink and miss yet another twist in the saga. Kody, beyond sight behind a side door and holding, was out of sight, but not from the weight of the room. That weight had stayed. Penetrated walls like the tendrils of smoke off a fire that had burned low and long. Christine was standing next to the table, hands folded quietly over her binder, the one thing that had once symbolized her stick. To it, Iveness, derided, dismissed, even feared, now stood as a legal landslide, and everyone who had stayed behind was standing in the aftermath. Robyn was still, not restrained, not imprisoned, but not yet. But clearly aware the walls were closing in. Her purse sat untouched on the bench beside her, left behind. Her hands trembled again, though this time not due to Kody. It was on her own account. She looked at the judge's bench, now empty. Then at Christine. "You were defending the family," she breathed. Christine tilted her head. "Number. I was supposed to take care of my kids, and I did." Janelle walked out of the gallery, her smaller binder still clamped under her arm. "And we trusted him," she said. For too long. Robyn slowly stood up, drowsy and unsteady, as though she had awakened in a world she had not anticipated. "It was never going to be this," she whispered, "just a simple will. That is what he said to me. That is what he guaranteed me." Christine nodded. "He guaranteed us all things, Robyn, but yours came with an attached bank account." The silence following that statement was thick, the sort you can't slice with words, but only with truth. Mary stepped forward. "I want to see the other tabs," she said to Christine. Christine didn't blink. She passed over the binder. All tabs, all receipts, every name. This wasn't stealing, this was erased. And the binder had documented every strand of betrayal Robyn used to refer to as logistics. Robyn crossed her arms around herself in a protective gesture. "He said I should trust him." "So did we," Janelle answered. "But we made copies too." Christine pulled out her phone. "There is something else," she said. "The emails." Mary's eyes flared. "What emails?" Kody sent an instruction to a third-party company in Utah to begin crediting documentary income to a shell corporation account as soon as the trust was resolved. He BCC'd me by accident and then immediately revoked access, but I took a screenshot of the thread before it was gone. Robyn's jaw dropped. When? 6 months before he told us that TLC wasn't buying our contracts due to budget cuts. The color left Robyn's face. "But we were still being paid," Christine nodded. "We were, the money just didn't find its way to us." Robyn got back into her seat. Mary muttered to herself. So all those canceled checks weren't canceled. They were rerouted. Janelle leaned into the moment, fierce and focused. "If this goes federal, Christine, you are going to need bodyguards. You know that, don't you?" Christine nodded slowly. "That is why I waited to release tab 24 until I had my kids moved, my finances divided, and my attorneys stacked." Robyn looked at her as if she was seeing Christine for the first time, undefined. "You planned this," she breathed. "Undefined? No," Christine replied. "Undefined, I prepared. There is a difference." The bailiff walked in with a piece of paper in his hand. "Full financial investigation starts in 72 hours. Undefined, all digital and physical evidence would be under the control protection. Undefined, no one can destroy or alter financial records in the future." He handed Christine a copy.com pleated then, another to Robyn.com pleated then, to Janelle.com pleated, and finally one to Mary. 4wives.com, pleaded4histories.com, pleaded own truth. The courtroom was now almost empty, but the emotional destruction still clung like fog. The 4 women, aunt, sister, wives, once commanded to smile through vice, like silence, now stood together not as wives, but as witnesses, as plaintiffs, as survivors. For years, they had been revolving around Kody Brown like satellites, whirling in choreographed chaos for the sake of his ego, his vows, and his so-called vision of family. But now, they were there now steadily. Together, Christine placed the flash drive into a protective sleeve and handed it over to the bailiff. It contains a duplicate encrypted copy of tab 24, the Dropbox emails, and the deleted bank communications metadata logs. Janelle tacked on a folder of handwritten documents and photocopied receipts. Mary, as if in some sort of ritualistic moment, pulled out her original 2011 home contract, the one she signed when Kody told her to, and he then later forgot when making arrangements for the estate. And Robyn? Robyn didn't open her mouth. She simply stood there, tormented, knowing that keeping quiet might have won her temporary liberation, but had also guaranteed her place in the investigation. This was no longer a performance. This was a courtroom where women got up, not to tear each other down, but to burn the illusion they were all forced to live within. A junior lawyer came over in silence. Christine, the state's financial crimes division, is inviting an off. The records sit down next week. They want you to take them through the whole binder, tab by tab. They said they've never seen documentation this precise from a private citizen. Christine gave a small nod. I'll be there. The attorney hesitated. You realize this will likely lead to charges not just against Kody, but potentially Robyn too. Christine looked past her to the woman now trembling at the defense table. That's up to the evidence, not me. Mary folded her arms. So, what happens now? Janelle answered before Christine could. Now we finish what we started. And then what? Mary asked again. Christine looked toward the shut courtroom doors. Then we rebuild. Robyn broke in finally. You mean without him? Christine turned to her, her voice steady. Robyn, we already did. We only needed the judge to catch up. Robyn looked down, her defense crumbling faster than the trust accounts Kody maintained were consolidated. A brawl erupted unexpectedly off down in the hallway outside the courtroom. Reporters, cameras, flashbulbs popping like fireworks. The word was out. Kody Brown, arrested, was already emblazoned on every corner of the web. But Christine didn't flinch. They're not here for us, she said. They're here for the story. Mary faced her. So, what do we do? Christine smiled faintly. We write the ending ourselves this time. Outside, reporters shouted questions. About the arrest? About the binder? About TLC? About Robyn? About money inside? 4 women folded their belongings in silence, dignified, resolved, changed forever. They weren't merely walking away from Kody, they were walking towards the truth. Days passed, and the headlines hadn't faded, had only grown more intense. News anchors, podcasts, legal pundits, all analyzing the same image, Kody Brown, being escorted in handcuffs, head down, lips pressed together. It was the end of one era and the dawn of a revelation. What had started as gossip about favoritism and manipulation was now evidenced by ledgers, signatures, wire transfers, and a woman who had had enough. Christine's binder, once scoffed at by producers, teased by Kody, and dismissed by fans conditioned to believe she was simply the dramatic one, had become the foundation for what could be a landmark case of financial abuse in polygamous families. Within 48 hours, attorneys from other plural marriage families called Christine's lawyers, those who'd been watching the show not for fun but for sustenance. They wanted templates. They wanted strategy. They needed replicas of the binder system. And Christine shared it with them. Every tab, every category, every method she had used to trace, date, and authenticate. A movement was forming, and it had started with a woman who refused to let her pain stay hidden behind a smiling confessional cam. The state investigation officially opened the following Monday. Robyn was served with her subpoena quietly. She didn't weep this time. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't deny. She simply dissolved into the cover of the law, her attorney now speaking for her in brief, mechanical sentences. Mrs. Brown is cooperating, they claimed, but behind closed doors that cooperation had been marked by terror, because those transactions were real. Those payments were real, and unlike the love that Kody had so publicly preached, these things could be measured. Last retention hook, what Christine had discovered wasn't just a betrayal, it was a blueprint, and now the courts were using it. Janelle, prodded by Christine's action, brought her own civil suit for financial damages. Mary, once most isolated, provided testimony in the form of audio recordings. Off-the-record conversations, promises made by Kody in 2020 that she'd have access to money that no longer existed. The court merged the complaints. What had started out as a divorce and battle over a trust had escalated into a case of civil conspiracy. And Christine, she testified at a state summit on domestic asset protection. The same woman who had once been portrayed as the betrayed wife, the emotional one, the complainer, now taught lawyers how to follow paper trails left by controlling spouses. Tab 24 was published, censored, and recreated as a case study. Its title, The Binder That Broke the Patriarch, a Financial Forensics Case. Kody Brown was detained in jail awaiting trial. His bail was denied due to the risk of tampering with evidence and flight. TLC officially discontinued all Sister Wives filming, and fans, once divided, now stood in support of the women whose reality had been manipulated for ratings. Christine Brown stepped into the courtroom for the final time, not as a defendant, not as a broken wife, not even as a witness, but as a woman who laid the record straight and rewrote her own story with yellow tabs and bulletproof facts. And when the judge came over and gazed at her and inquired if she had anything to say before the record was closed, she spoke with one final declaration. Yes, make sure that no other women will ever again have to make a binder to prove themselves. Undefined, and with that she turned, left the courtroom undefined, and into the annals of history. They weren't merely walking away from Kody, they were walking towards the truth. Days passed, and the headlines hadn't faded, had only grown more intense. News anchors, podcasts, legal pundits, all analyzing the same image, Kody Brown, being escorted in handcuffs, head down, lips pressed together. It was the end of one era and the dawn of a revelation. What had started as gossip about favoritism and manipulation was now evidenced by ledgers, signatures, wire transfers, and a woman who had had enough. Christine's binder, once scoffed at by producers, teased by Kody, and dismissed by fans conditioned to believe she was simply the dramatic one, had become the foundation for what could be a landmark case of financial abuse in polygamous families. Within 48 hours, attorneys from other plural marriage families called Christine's lawyers, those who'd been watching the show not for fun but for sustenance. They wanted templates. They wanted strategy. They needed replicas of the binder system. And Christine shared it with them. Every tab, every category, every method she had used to trace, date, and authenticate. A movement was forming, and it had started with a woman who refused to let her pain stay hidden behind a smiling confessional cam. The state investigation officially opened the following Monday. Robyn was served with her subpoena quietly. She didn't weep this time. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't deny. She simply dissolved into the cover of the law. Her attorney now speaking for her in brief, mechanical sentences. Mrs. Brown is cooperating, they claimed, but behind closed doors that cooperation had been marked by terror, because those transactions were real, those payments were real, and unlike the love that Kody had so publicly preached, these things could be measured. Last retention hook, what Christine had discovered wasn't just a betrayal, it was a blueprint, and now the courts were using it. Janelle, prodded by Christine's action, brought her own civil suit for financial damages. Mary, once most isolated, provided testimony in the form of audio recordings. Off-the-record conversations, promises made by Kody in 2020 that she'd have access to money that no longer existed. The court merged the complaints. What had started out as a divorce and battle over a trust had escalated into a case of civil conspiracy. And Christine, she testified at a state summit on domestic asset protection. The same woman who had once been portrayed as the betrayed wife, the emotional one, the complainer, now taught lawyers how to follow paper trails left by controlling spouses. Tab 24 was published, censored, and recreated as a case study. Its title, The Binder That Broke the Patriarch, a Financial Forensics Case. Kody Brown was detained in jail awaiting trial. His bail was denied due to the risk of tampering with evidence and flight. TLC officially discontinued all Sister Wives filming, and fans, once divided, now stood in support of the women whose reality had been manipulated for ratings. Christine Brown stepped into the courtroom for the final time, not as a defendant, not as a broken wife, not even as a witness, but as a woman who laid the record straight and rewrote her own story with yellow tabs and bulletproof facts. And when the judge came over and gazed at her and inquired if she had anything to say before the record was closed, she spoke with one final declaration. Yes, make sure that no other women will ever again have to make a binder to prove themselves. Undefined, and with that she turned, left the courtroom undefined, and into the annals of history.